He had a hearse.
All I heard was he had a hearse.
Yeah.
Timing.
All right,
I'm
great.
sorry.
Alrighty then.
Okay.
Welcome. I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item we have is assignment for request for council action, several for finance, 24-121 budget amendments, 24-123 amend code section 11501 annual and 5-year budget timeline, 24-124 authorize MOU expenditure for grant funding SRO K9 program for the police, 24-125 amend PO 24-946 police specials uniform purchases, 24-126 increase expenditure PO 24-739 Rocco Masonry Service Department. 24-127 increase expenditure PO 24-1068 Rogue Fitness Workout Room. 24-128 2025 tax budget. 24-129 purchase 2024 Ford Transit van MCRC. 24-130 amend ordinance 5923 West Smith Road reconstruction phase 4. 24-131 bids job number 1171 Progress Drive Water Tower repaint repair. 24-132 expenditure not to exceed 50,000 Medina County Courthouse lease. 24-133 amend salaries and benefits code addition add law department intern. 24-134 amend salaries and benefit code step authorization adjustments law department. Okay. First item we have then is 24-103 amend salaries and benefits 3113 vacation policy for experienced hires. And I know there was a committee set up. I don't know who wants to lead that from the committee, mayor or anybody else on council from the committee. Anybody? Any takers? Keith, you want to do it?
I wrote it, I'll introduce it, but then everybody that was on the committee can feel free to comment. So there are two, in addition to the existing policy for a new hire, there are two alternatives here at the discretion of Board of Control. One is that a person with experience would get 2 weeks when they start, then they wouldn't accrue for the first year, and because they've already gotten it. So that way, if they had a vacation planned or something, they'd be able to take it. We do have a provision in there that they don't get paid out for that if they leave within the year, and if they leave within the year and they've already used more than they would have earned, that we would claw that back out of their terminating pay. And then the second one is for somebody with substantial experience, that they get 3 weeks at the beginning and start out earning at 3 instead of start out earning at 2, and then the same provisions for within that first year. I think that kind of covers, we did have a meeting, went over it. I think this is what we were all aiming for, so if anybody else wants to comment or if council has any questions from there.
So you start accruing vacation when you start, and you will, from the time of hire, you will in your first year accrue 2 weeks. If you bring to the job years of experience, and it is deemed that you're entitled to another week, you will have 3 weeks in that first year, and you won't accrue the 3 weeks until the second year. Make sense? So you have it, so you get that additional third week at the start of the job, but you don't accrue it, or you don't accrue that first week. And then going into the second year, you start accruing for 3 weeks. You will have your 3 weeks, and then the next, 6 years, when you get that's when normally you would get that third week. Well, you already have it, so then you got to go to the next step on years to get the additional 4th week. So you're just starting with 3 weeks.
And then who makes the decision, like on a new hire, of the level of work or sophistication or whatever? Who makes that decision?
Board of Control.
Board of Control.
Board of Control.
Okay, Board of
Yeah.
Control, okay.
Yes, sir.
Approval upon Board of Control.
With the recommendation, I guess
Yeah.
it would be the recommendation because of the department head, because they know best, I would imagine.
Right, yeah, the department head would requested a Board of Control, but then the 5 of us would discuss it and make a decision as to whether it makes sense or it doesn't. Now, I thought we had the one position from the police department too that we wanted to retro into this.
We did.
We
We
did.
did, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have just one person that Chief, you can help us here.
Yeah, he came in with 12 years' experience. He was a lateral, our first lateral,
And how long ago?
about a year ago.
Right. So we didn't think it was fair to change this, but not retro him back into it, because then we hire somebody in with 10 years' experience less than him, could get 3 weeks, and he's still at 2 for the first 5 years.
Right.
And then that's the only example we could find in the city that would apply to.
Okay, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but what about the court example? How many years did that guy have?
Who are we talking? Are we talking about Kevin Ross?
We're talking
Yes.
about Kevin.
Well, Kevin has 30-plus years at the court. But we were only looking to start him out, we were just looking to give him a week to start out. So
Okay.
we weren't looking for any large number of vacation days to give him.
So yeah, I think I neglected to write that into this when I was trying to get all the notes coalesced. So there does need to be a provision that for persons hired within the last, if we want to say 2 years, Board of Control can make that determination retroactively.
I thought that's what we talked about. We said we were going to go
We-
back 2 years.
we-
And Cindy, I did think we talked about
Talking about Kevin.
Kevin would be eligible
Yeah,
too.
Kevin would be eligible. He would be the only one that I can think of that would be eligible at the court side.
And wasn't there only one who would fit this criteria from the police department?
Yes, that's correct.
So 2 people total.
Yeah,
Anything else from me?
And again, we're still going to take the Board of Control.
correct.
So there's a review process.
I mean, that makes, I assume, Jim, what the schools do,
Yeah.
are we being competitive, I guess we are now?
I think we are. And Keith had so many different examples from other communities too, that either they had started doing this or were thinking about doing it for the same reason, to stay competitive, so.
That makes sense.
Right, you want the best people.
Any other questions on that?
So I'll make a motion to approve it as submitted with amending it to say, I'll look back for 2 years, Keith.
Second?
Appreciate all you guys' work on that, that makes
Yes.
sense, and hopefully we'll be in market, so to speak, and be more competitive with some experienced lateral hires. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, good. Next one is 24-111, amend salaries and benefits code, municipal court pay code updates. Keith, I guess you could start this one too, because it came from you.
Yes, there's a lot going on here, and to just give you the history, so you understand where this comes from. According to the ORC, a lot of these positions at the court aren't paid, the pay is not set by council, but that's never been defined in our pay code, so I've brought that into our pay code for each one of those. And these positions, we've always just paid what the judge or the clerk says, but we've never really known why. It's always been, well, it's somewhere in the ORC. So we went and got that, and here's all the code sections. So when you see these positions, I've referenced why we're paying them that, because ORC, and I've given this, the section says that pay is set by the judge, or that pay is set by the clerk. So the deputy clerks, for example, their pay is set by the clerk of courts. So they are not in the pay code in terms of dollars and cents, but they are now brought into the pay code. At least we're referencing them and saying, here's why we do this. It's under ORC. And this covers, so everybody at the court will now be referenced in the pay code. Some of their pays won't be there because they're set somewhere else, but they will all be referenced and we'll understand why we're doing it.
The only question I have, we're referencing the pay codes and stuff, I mean, they don't fall into the categories in it, they're automatically getting step increases and all this other stuff, because you got them at different grades here. And I just didn't want any confusion that we put them in the pay code, even though it's authorized only by the judge to make their salary, but we're listing it as a 2A, some of them or something, I mean, I did,
No, everybody who's listed, who's got it, like the 2A listed there, those people are, and anybody who has the step and number, they are people where council sets their pay.
Okay.
So we're setting them to, and the change I made there is, it was in as $18 an hour, and we don't generally do that in our pay code. We don't put dollars in, we reference the steps, so that way when it goes up, it just goes up and we don't have to come back and change it. So I just picked 2A because that was the closest thing we had to the $18.
and what is 1E? Is that the?
Where's 1E?
No, I don't know, what would 1E be? I mean, you picked 2A because it was 1814, what was 1E, like 17 something?
It'd be no, it would be higher than that, because they overlap,
Oh, they overlap, okay.
yes.
But I just don't want to, I mean, just so council understands, we're not obligated, there's no right or obligation to go to 2B the next year, I mean,
No, and I specifically put that in, that position is paid at 2A, not 2A to F where it gets steps.
Okay.
It's just 2A, because that's not a full-time position.
Okay. And then the probation secretary, you put in it from 5A to F, so there is steps in that one. And I think we kept the same language we had in there about, because there was confusion about, on the part-timers and full-timers, you could be substituted out. That's that little asterisk that was in the old code, I think, right?
Right, well, that's pulled from the old code. I'm not changing anything there. I just grabbed what we had. Because you had previously put in that code that the probation secretary could be either a full-timer or part-timers, but you have a total hour. I just pulled what you had. I didn't change it.
Right, okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, Paul.
thank you. The pay grades, are they associated with, say, a specific type of job function or job responsibility where that, and I don't know all the job requirements, but would a 2A in the judicial pay be more equivalent to maybe a 3C in the regular?
I guess I understand I think I understand what you're asking, but those grades and steps are just applied across the city, and then when you create a position, you say, okay, what do we want to pay this position, and you pick the one that you go with, and council assigns it to it. So there's not really I don't think there's really a place where we've gone in and said, okay, this is what this one should be. You understand?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I can just,
And 2A is not one we use anywhere else. Mostly, I mean, that's an intern, essentially, so most everybody here starts at 5A. That's pretty much the lowest one we actually functionally use. Those others exist, but I don't know that there's anybody in them.
okay, I don't want to get caught up someplace down the road where somebody sees that they're a 2A and they find out that the person over here has essentially the same job responsibilities and they're getting paid another thing that's obviously higher. Okay,
Not
that's.
that
I
that
just-
doesn't happen, but so I
okay.
understand.
All right, I just wanted, looking down the road.
So number 3, it says in section 3105 municipal court, add the following. Like, for example, in E, it says a judicial aide or a judicial assistant, pay grade 8A to F. And that is determined by the city or by the court?
This one is worded as 8A to F because the pay is set by council.
And right now, you said, I mean, what would they be at? I mean,
Well,
8E? I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out, there's no step happening here, right? Next year, there's not going to be a step happening.
Well, there will. They're set as 8A to F, so there will be steps. But the current pay is 3055. So again, I just picked the number that was
But
closest
if it was
to
at
that.
3055, what would it be next year if we did nothing? If we didn't do this code, what would it be?
It'd be 3055 unless you changed it because it's in the code as 3055.
Why did we setting it up that there's going to be a 5% pay raise, and I don't understand? Because you're going to go to step E to F, or it's not at 8F right now. This 3055 is not 8F, correct? It's 8E.
Right, because it's 3055 isn't any of them. What I did is I picked the one where the F step is closest to the current pay.
I got you. So she'll be, whoever it is, we're making 3104.
Right.
I got you.
And if you put them down, if you put them at 7A to F, it would be less than they're already making now.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, but the person's at 8, they're going to get a raise no matter what now, but they're getting a raise of 49 cents an hour, automatic, when we pass this.
And because at the end of the day, we don't have infinite number of pay grades and steps, so you got to pick someplace. This is the next higher one.
But before, Keith, it was a flat rate of 3055, right?
Right.
Okay. I think what John is asking you is now that we put it at this step, they are going to get a raise next year.
They will, but they're at the F step, so they're going to get a COLA, but they're not going to get a step because
Okay.
they're already at the F step.
But anybody else coming into this job,
Would start at the A step.
yep.
And if I can just add something, the judicial assistant, Judge Warner did a an AO on May 8th, and that was actually for Jackie Oles, which is his personal secretary, or direct secretary. He reappointed her a different title, so basically this judicial aid is kind of eliminated.
Because when you move her over to administrative assistant, which is letter C in part 3 of my request there, they're not set by council, so we don't have anything to discuss.
Well, that's why he moved her.
I get that.
So it kind of eliminated that.
Well, do we need, I guess we could just leave it in there. I mean, do we need that, or do we get rid of it then? I mean,
That's up to you. I mean, that would be up to council, what you decide. Right now, Judge Warner has her,
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's no judicial aid, never probably would be one.
yeah, he has her as administrative assistant, so. the
When I
only-
wrote this, there was one, so I
I
put it
get
in
it.
here.
Right.
But if we're saying it's
Delete
gone
it,
now,
right?
Just take it out.
then we can just take that out.
Okay. All right, makes sense.
And then you don't need to worry about what grade or
Yeah,
what
yes,
pay.
you're right,
just-
you're right,
Right,
yeah.
so.
So Cindy, you went through this with Keith, and you're all good with it?
Yep, Keith and I and Lorene and Lori all met and went through it. I'm not going to say there's probably not going to be another change because we were working with old information and we kind of tried to pick apart everything we could. But this is about as new as we could get it and make sure at least we had an ORC attached to any of the job descriptions or there was a pay grade somewhere in there that anybody after us could follow through.
And of course, Keith mentioned he adopted all the other asterisks and all the different things that happen. I think Lorene and I spoke with that, and I kept asking her, what are all these asterisks? It's so confusing.
They were very confusing.
Yes,
That's why I
because-
said it might be one or two more changes coming along, just if we, something down the road, but we want to clean it up and make it very easy and easy to
Well, yeah,
follow.
and then somebody can look and they can actually figure out.
Right, because that's always been our question, like if the judge says, okay, pay this person this amount, we've always kind of looked at it like, okay, why are we doing this? Is this judge's order? And this makes it clear
Yep.
which positions are set by the judge and which positions are set by council. So if he comes over and says, pay this person X, well, if they're one of the positions that he sets the salary for, we pay X and we're done. If they're not, if they're one of the positions that council sets the salary for, we take that request from him and turn it into RCA and send it to you because council has to approve that change. And this gives us clarity for us in finance to know what the marching orders are. Okay, if it's a position set by the judge, just go ahead and do it. If it's set by council, send it to council.
Makes sense.
Well, and Keith, I think it helps you too with the auditors when they come in and they look
Oh, yeah.
at who, now they can.
Why are you doing this?
Exactly. So it covers you there.
So it looks like everything in there is fine. We just have to remove item 3E, and everything else is good, I guess, correct? Anybody have any questions?
So I'll make a motion to approve as amended, taking out the judicial aid language.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 24-120, addendum to new parking violations hearing examiner. Is this mayor or chief?
I got it.
Wait a minute.
So you asked at the last finance meeting for me to get with Matt to redo the parking ordinance.
Right.
So currently, what we have is if somebody's issued a normal parking ticket, like time or parking on the sidewalk, things like that, it's $10 for the first 48 hours, and then it escalates to $25. That's pursuant to 353.99A. If the person wants to have a hearing, they have a right to do that, can request that, and if after the hearing, it's found in favor of the city, then our existing 353.99B says the fine will then be a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 50. Matt, and I know that's in the request for council action, struck out everywhere else where it talked about penalties or fines or fees. And his recommendation is anybody that doesn't settle it and we have to take an action with the hearing officer, that may or may not be a hearing, but he has to review and fill out a form for every single ticket. So rather than $50 for the hearing, we decided it would make more sense to charge $20 for every one that we have to involve the hearing officer because he has to certify each one of those violations. So if somebody has 3 tickets or 10 tickets, that would be 3 forms or 10 forms. Those forms are then filed with the court for the default, and then the person's put on notice. You can request a hearing, failure to pay these violations, or request a hearing within the time period is going to result in us sending the action to the BMV and block your license and license plates. So that way it will generate a little bit more revenue. It's a little bit more work as well for the hearing officers, not just the hearings. And we think that should work pretty well. I'll just, as a reminder to council, I think most of you are aware, but we've never broke even with the parking violations. We're paying for a part-time employee and their benefits, and generally the general fund is supplementing it pretty substantially. So if this generates a little more revenue, we have to pay the parking hearing officer for the hearings and these reviews, but in the same respect, we might be able to recoup some of that money so the general fund isn't hit as much. And probably most importantly is we need to amend the handicap section because we're not in compliance with the state law. The state law changed over a decade ago that said the minimum fine for a handicap violation is $250 and no more than $500. So it has to be in that range, and ours was still at $150. So the recommendation is to amend 353.99C to match the state code of $250 and $500. So I gave that to you all in writing. It seems a little bit confusing, but we tried to systematically work our way through these things.
And my understanding is when we hire this person, you know, we kind of talked about $50 an hour. I guess it all depends on how many in an hour does he look at. I mean, it could be 1 or it could be 3. So I guess it would fluctuate. And I don't know if we have a guesstimate of how close we would be to pay for this person, or, I mean, do you think we would get enough to pay $75?
Well, if we're charging $20 per citation, just the fact of reviewing it and stating or certifying that it states a valid offense, those can move pretty quickly. Or they're going to create forms for him where he just checks boxes, and if it meets the criteria or it doesn't meet the criteria, and then he just signs off and dates it. So we're thinking that maybe an hour a month at the most.
Do we know how many do we have outstanding now? What's the number of violators that have been paid? Is it like 1,400? Is it more than that? I thought I heard a number around there, 1,800.
Yeah, I had it in the original information.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was, let's see, let me look back.
We also need to approve the job description, and the other thing is we need to amend that one, I didn't realize we already had a section, turns out we did, for a hearing officer. And it was at $75 an hour.
Yeah, it was 70 and you talked about 50, you didn't know what you were going to do?
Well, but I mean, existing in our code.
Oh.
It was already at 75.
Right.
And when I was interviewing former Sergeant Ron Ross, he thought 50 was plenty and had no interest in going higher than that. But we already had it in our code, 3102F, so that's why that needs to be amended to the 50.
Okay.
So let me see.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, when you talked about it last time, there was, 1,500 to 2,000 unpaid parking tickets still out there. Free from years, not just 1 year. I guess it's multiple years. And I guess anything we can collect on that, and I would assume that some of those violators are repeat offenders.
Yes,
And it's
sir.
just not,
Yes, sir.
1,500 different cars. It's probably half that number, maybe even less, with multiple tickets.
And the other thing, I didn't have it on the initial one, because I figured if it took, before you went to break, but now you're gonna be on break if we don't pass it until the next one. I would respectfully request the emergency clause, because there's a 12-month window, that once they reach that window, they just drop off and we can't do anything with them after that. So if we postpone it another month, then we're giving another month of free rides to these folks.
Understood.
Nobody here has a ticket, do they?
But Mayor, just so I understand then, whether you have one ticket that's past due or 5
Just
tickets,
one?
right off the bat, they're going to certify it that it's an offense, and then it's $20 right there on top of what you already owe.
It can't be defaulted unless there's 3 or more unpaid tickets.
Okay.
Yes. So one ticket would not do it.
And that's under the Ohio Revised Code that sets that limit at 3?
Yes.
Okay.
So you
Well,
have to
and
be
I think
repeated.
our city code too, because Matt looked at the state law versus the civil parking and ours, and they're nearly identical. That's when he caught the handicap was not caught up for some reason, so. But yeah, I think our code and the state law both says that it's 3 or more before you can ask for the default through the muni court, and then you have to go through this process to get to that default.
So if you have 3 or more, I mean, is that, when I'm reading this, that would be $60 because you got to certify each one separately?
Correct.
Okay.
Hence, pay your parking ticket.
Well, it's only
Yes, sir.
$10.
Yes, sir.
Well,
That's
it
the
seems
whole
like you
goal.
should have to pay after
That's the
1,
whole goal.
not till 3. That drives me a little crazy too. It's like, just pay your ticket.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
But that makes sense. So does everybody agree with that? Understand that? How that's going to work? So do you understand the motion?
Well, I'm adding the emergency clause to it,
Yes. And?
and the change in the pay code,
Yes.
and the approval of the job. So I'll make a motion to approve the job description, change the pay code so that from 75 to 50, and add the emergency clause to it.
And then change the handicap.
And changing the.
And change
oh,
handy-
and change the
That's right.
ordinance, update, I think, a bunch of things in your ordinance. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, the changes as recommended with the emergency clause.
To section 353.
Second, including the emergency clause.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, we got that done.
Yeah.
Next item we have are budget amendments. We have 24028, which is, if I can get there, Keith, that's just,
This is a donation, so we
Yeah,
appreciate.
this is for the fire chief, he's on vacation. That Park Foundation gave the fire department a second $50,000 donation. This is the second one we received from them. And the chief's just asking to, A, accept the donation, and B, to appropriate it in the 2 line items that he's selected.
questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2429, Memorial Pool.
Jansen, do you want to talk about this?
Sure, thank you. The city pool needs some additional funds for increased resale items, our rising costs for chemicals and repairs, and another line for replacing some broken pool lounge chairs. And then we have a additional appropriation in there for a vehicle, which is later on in the agenda. It's carry forward funds.
How do those chairs break?
They're lounge chairs, so they go up and down, and you would be surprised what happens to them.
All right.
All righty.
Anybody have any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2430, fireworks donation.
There's a donation here, and then the courthouse lease, which we're going to have appropriation to start paying.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-123, amend 11501, annual and 5-year budget timeline. Keith?
So, first let me make clear, the only fund we have that has a property tax levy attached to it is the EMS fund, so that's the only one we're talking about right now. But I did word this request in such a way that if we were to adopt a levy for some other fund, it would be in that first set of budgets that we do in the spring. The reason for this is these levies need to be renewed every 5 years, and you'll note that we have a budget meeting coming up 2 days from now on Wednesday, the 12th, and the EMS fund is scheduled in that meeting, but that's too late to then start the process of the renewal then. It has to be started sooner. So by kicking this into the spring group, we'll be able to look at the budget in April, determine what we need for renewal or replacement or increase or whatever, and then still have time to put that through, because the property tax process has quite a process to it with the state. We have to pass this resolution requesting that the county tell us what the money will bring, and then that comes back, and then we have to pass a resolution of necessity, and all that has to get to the Board of Elections 90 days prior to the election date. So this will give us enough time to do that after the budget.
Everybody understand that?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 24-124 SRO K-9 Program MOU, accept funding and authorize an expenditure. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. Police Department and the Medina City Schools would like to collaborate on a school resource officer K-9 program. K-9 will have bomb and firearms detection capabilities as well as community and student engagement functions. K-9 training for the SRO handler and the upfit of a K-9 vehicle will be paid for by a school safety grant through the state of Ohio, and it was secured by Medina City Schools. It will be in the amount of $24,492. The police department will provide a vehicle to be upfitted for the program. K-9 will be primarily used in the Medina City Schools, but would be an asset for the entire city and the region. The police department is requesting authorization to receive the grant funds from the schools. It's a pass-through again from that school safety grant, so no school money is being used. This is from the state of Ohio through a grant. We're also asking permission for the mayor to enter into the attached MOU with the city schools, and we're also requesting authorization for the expenditure of the listed items to fund Shallow Creek Kennels and Hall Public Safety. Again, Shallow Creek Kennels, it'll be for the actual dog itself, and the training for the SRO, and Hall Public Safety will be the upfit for the vehicle. Be happy to answer any questions. Also, the emergency clause is requested so that we can get dibs on the dog that we picked out.
And I assume the extra funding, it's a one-time grant, right? 24,000 one time? It's not like multiple year, you just do it once?
Yes, sir. The school safety grant is a yearly grant, but this pass-through from the schools is a one-time.
And the extra money this year to do all this equipment purchase, I assume that's a one-time purchase and that's coming from carryover funds, carry-forward
No,
funds?
the equipment purchase will be out of that school safety grant as well.
What about the other things that you mentioned that's listed here? Is all that coming out of that?
The vehicle will provide, but yes, everything else is coming out of that
Okay, it's
school
just
safety
itemized. That's just the itemization.
Yes, sir.
of it. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
We're still working on that, but I think we'll be okay either way.
With regard to the grant, do the schools have the grant now?
The schools have the grant, they're
Okay.
ready once we enter into the MOU that they'll send us the check. Also, with regards to the vehicle, we are exploring options for a grant funding or the Lincoln Foundation is what we're looking at. We're going to explore that to see if they can support a vehicle for this program. I know they have preferences and deference towards K-9 programs.
Mr. Coyne?
Mayor?
Are you done, Paul? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So they're still sorting out whether we have the vehicle or we don't, but I serve on the Lincoln Foundation, and Thomas and Jill Lincoln Foundation prefers K-9 programs. In fact, funding additional dogs and trainings and anything that goes along with that, which a vehicle would. So if we could include in this the ability for the city to pursue that grant funding, and if we can get a police vehicle from them, then the chief would make a determination as to whether it makes sense to give the K-9 program the brand-new car, or put the brand-new car in the front line and then give a year or two old car to the K-9. But we need the council's approval to start the grant process for that.
Questions?
Mr. Coyne, I'm going to abstain just because that involves my employer, but I did read a great article this weekend about the University of Akron has had a program with a dog and just what a difference it's made on their campus and the interaction with students. It made me feel good reading that article, thinking as big as Medina High School is, it will have a dog there too.
Yeah, I think it'll be a huge asset for Medina High School and all the schools in the city as well.
I do have a question. Is there any special requirements for a car, a K-9 car? Or is there
Yes.
what's the differences for those of us that don't know?
The vehicle, again, part of the grant is the vehicle upfit, so there's equipment inside the vehicle. What that includes is a cage and primarily safety equipment for the dog, and it's relative to the heat of the vehicle. So if the dog is kenneled inside the vehicle, if the temperature gets to a certain degree, the horn will start going off, an alarm will sound, the car itself will call the handler on its phone. It's essentially safety measures in the car.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause
Second includes the emergency clause?
With the,
and with the amendment for the grant.
Second includes the amendment?
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abstain.
Oh, any abstentions? Sorry.
Aye.
Forgot you again. 24-125, increase PO 24-946, police uniform purchases. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just to increase the PO for uniforms. The emergency clause is requested because we have invoices due.
Questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second including emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-126, increase PO 24-739, Rocco Masonry Service Department. Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we're asking to have PO 2024-739 increased to cover costs related to concrete replacement in a driveway at 330 Woodland Drive. So about a year ago, we had a project that involved installing a large structure, concrete structure. It's like 4-foot round by 11-foot tall to accommodate flow from 24-inch storm pipe. And there's easement going across the driveway. That was the easiest access. Otherwise, we were going to have to enter from 2 properties and go along the ravine and take out trees and so forth. With that being said, Rocco Masonry has honored their prices from last year, even though concrete has risen significantly. And this gentleman's been very patient as we've been dealing with this storm sewer issue that we didn't even know we had until the sinkhole developed like 3 years ago.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman? Nino, did you look at the written description?
I did, so I wanted to
Okay,
correct
yeah,
the,
yeah.
Kathy was kind enough to send me over the latest BOC in finance, and so disregard the
Okay,
technology
thank you.
switches and network. I don't know why
Thank
that printed on there was
Because,
my
yeah,
error,
switches
so
and
thank you for
switches
pointing
don't
that
work very
out.
well under concrete.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-127, increase PO 24-1068, Rogue Fitness for the workout room. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I'm covering this for grants for Barbara. So previously, council approved the grant dollars of $34,977.82 for the City Hall workout equipment room, which was the majority of the cost. And they have more money left in the grant, and it's come to the administration and the grant officer's attention that some of the female staff members were not as involved in making some of the decisions. So this 2381 is to get more of the lighter weights and equipment suitable for the women staff members. That raises the total, though, that 2381 raises the total above the $35,000 threshold for the Finance Committee, so we will now need to take that to council, because the grand total would be $37,358.82.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
24-128, 2025 tax budget. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the tax budget we do every year. It's not actually, it doesn't actually provide a budget for expenditures. It's mostly how the county figures out what our revenue estimate is. But you have to approve it, and we have to send it into them, so I'll have all the details to you for next meeting. We can go through and finish it. I just get the estimate for the expenditures off the prior 5-year plan.
Questions?
Move to approve.
You're asking for the emergency clause?
You have to submit to the county.
Yeah. But it is a resolution.
Oh, yeah, we don't have an emergency clause in a resolution.
Yeah, we do.
Resolutions are just resolutions. I don't, ordinances need emergency clause, resolutions are just, they are what they are, I think.
Sounds right to me.
But I don't know why we do that. Oh. Yeah, we don't need to do that.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 24-129, purchase 2024 Ford Transit van for the MCRC van. Mr. Worley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I talk about the actual purchase here, I just want to give you a little background on where this came from. So the Rec Center does a variety of activities outside the walls of the Rec Center, and we have for several years now. We use transportation from the school, mostly school buses for our larger summer camp field trips, where now we have about 80 kids in it. So we use 2 school buses on a relatively regular basis in the summer if it's a long distance trip. In the past, we've used McPowell vans to help with programming activities, and we are at a point where we want to continue to expand those programs that we offer outside the rec center for a variety of different age groups, for seniors, for those that are in the tweens age, for younger children. And when talking through it, I did reach back out to McPowell to see if we could get through some of the concerns that we had with insurance related to that, since that's part of the county now, as well as reached out to the school to see if we could borrow vans from them. But when we started thinking about it and the opportunity that a 15-passenger van would present us, taking out that need to schedule in advance for a van and then have inclement weather or something and the trip has to get canceled, and having our own makes it a lot easier for us to facilitate a variety of different events and activities that we listed there. This was just a brainstorm list that our programming staff and Christy put together. And what we're looking to do is have small group activities. This isn't to replace school buses or charter buses that we use to go to Indians games. This is just to offer another opportunity for the rec center. We are currently in the process of doing an adventure camp, which has up to 15 participants to go on destination trips, like to Cedar Point and a variety of different things that we could offer for teenagers that we aren't currently doing. And there's interest in it. We have people signed up. So I got a price on a transit van, and I talked it over with Christy and our staff, and they're very interested in proceeding with this through the Community University and Education Cooperative Purchasing Program through Montrose Ford. So I'd like to recommend it. I did check with our insurance company, and we have approval from them to do it. And upon getting their approval, I had told them that we were going to limit our drivers to no more than 3 drivers, and Ryan O'Call from the schools offered to put our employees through their van training with the school staff so that we have control over it, we can minimize our risks, and it also will be replacing our Ford Escape that we have that we use for party in the parks, so we'll be able to transport our programming items around a lot easier. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
I see you're using carry forward funds.
Correct.
I was just wondering if you could tell us where the 7 of us will be going on the inaugural trip on the van for the team building retreat?
I do have one question. Jensen, thank you for the thorough work that you did on this in the presentation, but one thing I just want to be clear, with the programs that you're going to use this for, if there's any time that the participant would be charged, some of that money would go back in to help defray the cost of this, correct?
Yeah, so any off-site programs that we're doing where we're using the van, that will be wrapped into the cost. So we do profitability sheets for pretty much any program that we do to just decide how we're going to set the pricing. So it would include whatever event admission is, and then obviously a small charge for the use of the van, and then our staff time as well is included in that. And then we try and gauge our pricing and also, you know, have a good idea of what revenue we're going to be bringing in by doing that program.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 24-130, amend ordinance 5923, West Smith Road reconstruction, Phase 4. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to add, increase the value of the contract for West Smith due to several different, and I listed them out there, unexpected items that came up. The largest one is related to the sanitary sewer laterals, and that one is being covered by the Medina County sanitary engineers cost.
Questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 24-131, bids on job number 1171, Progress Drive Water Tower repaint and a repair. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. President. Our Progress Drive Water Tower is, I think, 21 years old now. We're trying to get in a cycle where we repaint the exterior of our towers every 15 to 20 years. So this one is due. They're also, based on an inspection, some improvements that need to be made. There's an interior wet ladder that wasn't required when we built this. It is required now, things like that. Total cost is estimated at $375,000.
Any questions on that?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 24-132, expenditure not to exceed $50,000 for the courthouse lease.
We need to have money appropriated to start making these payments.
Yeah, I know that, Mayor, you can go ahead.
Right. So you don't have yet the amendments to the courthouse lease, and the reason for that is rather than wait for, no disrespect, rather than wait for the county prosecutor's office to create it and have us review it, Chris Jacob and I talked about it, and I thought we could get it more timely if Mr. Huber put it together. We did. I sent it to Chris, I believe Thursday, and Chris approved it and sent it over to Mike Lyons, but we have not got the answer yet back for that. But what it is in essence is the lease will be amended to start July 1st. So that starts our 33 years instead of losing the 6 or 7 months from when we passed the lease last fall. They'll charge us for the latter 2 quarters of this year, which is where the $50,000 comes in. It's about $25,000 per quarter. The other thing that's not included in this is the utility payments. The lease states that all the utilities for the building that are metered will be metered into the city's name, and we will pay those directly. Chris was not quite sure, and I have no idea how exactly to go about doing that, so he's researching that with his maintenance people of what it's going to take to get all of those things transferred from their name to our name, and if we have to sign something or get that done, and then we can cover that in our existing POs that we have for city water, electric, and sanitary, and then may have to amend those budgets just because of this additional building. The county graciously, and this will be in the lease amendment as well, and I hope to have that on for the 24th and then at your last meeting in July. But they also graciously agreed to not start the security costs until we actually occupy the building, which is a savings of about $70,000 a year estimated, or $35,000 for this half year. So they've been very gracious to work with us. We're hoping to get this lease amendment ready for the 24th, but that's kind of it in a broad sense.
Thanks, and I had a conversation with the judge on it a little bit. I think the special project fund, if I remember correctly, talking to the judge, is about $4.7 million in his special project fund, and we have about $4 million in our 301 account, which will be used both for the lease payment and for both of our funds, the court construction. The only thing I would recommend on this is, since we're splitting it 50-50, I would recommend that once the courthouse is completed, it shifts to the special projects fund, because I think we've always talked about, since the special projects funds covers the 3/4 of the county, those monies that are generated from those people who use the court should pay for it. And I know that we talked about after the money, about 4 million or so, or 4.2, or whatever it is, for the special projects fund, we split with whatever over that 50/50. So 50% comes from the city, 50% comes from the special projects fund, which will be short, right? So it could take 20, 30 years to get the money back, but I think we could do internal notes to cover that.
You approved a few weeks ago hiring Amanda Gordon, our bond counsel, so that we will do bond anticipation notes, so that if we choose to borrow it, we can.
Right.
We have to preserve that ability at the front end.
But I understand at the beginning, sharing a 50/50 makes sense, but, once we're fully operational, I mean, the city's gonna be funding a majority of the operations over there, because that's what we have to do. It sounds like the lease payment at least should come from the special project fund at that point, just because of the use. I mean, we talked about that, but I do understand if we do it all now, then his special project fund will be eaten down by 100,000 or more a year for the next couple of years, and then it'll be less to use for the court. I get that, so I think it makes sense after talking with the mayor, but after that, I think it should shift once we're done with once it's open, certificate of occupancy issued, that's when it should revert back to the special projects fund. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Mayor?
Yes, and just for the council's benefit, because I met with the judge and Cindy and Keith and Lori. Right now, 2023, they generated just a little bit in excess of 200,000 a year with the case fees, court filing fees. So we expect that number will likely at least be that, if not increase, as the agencies are adding officers and more cases are being filed. And what John is saying makes perfect sense to me, that the users of the court then are actually paying for the fees of running that portion of the court. And then obviously the city has the staffing and those type things.
And it should be pretty close, I would imagine. I think it just depends, like you said. I think when Judge Chase was here many years ago, 10 years ago or so, we were collecting 250,000. But I think the case loads were up to 18 to 19,000 a year. And I don't think we're at that number. I think we're at 12,000.
Right, and a portion of that was when they were dividing cases up, and then
Right.
there was a court ruling that you couldn't
Right.
do that. So that's why some of those numbers have adjusted. It's not necessarily less charges, but if they're all out of one case, if you have 4 charges in one case, that's 1, not 4.
Right. So I think it could cover, once it hits the lease payments and it's fully operational, it'll cover the lease payments, and there'll be some money left over from that account to pay back if we get a bond issue or whatever, the court's portion and the city's portion, but it could take a long time, but that's the way it is. Any questions on that? So just with that one modification.
I'm sorry, Jim, I'm sorry. Just one more thing. I did have, and it was just a shot in the dark, literally, but I had Barbara reach out to Max Miller's office, the fellow that was here talking to us about the airport, because every time we've looked, we couldn't find anything at all for grants, and he thinks there is a mechanism to try to recover, especially with our history of trying to solve this problem for 20 years. The fact that the court is not just the city of Medina, but the northern 2/3 of Medina County. So we're getting all that data together for them. And if it looks like there is an opportunity to bring in some grant money to where neither the court nor the city have to expend quite as much, we'll just need council's approval for that. We're still kind of vetting that out right now.
That'd be great. I mean, we could always ask.
That's right.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion, but John, what you're saying is then that we will take this now
Until certificate.
in certificate of occupancy, and then it will start to come from the special projects at that point.
So that'll be about a year and a half, 2 years, depending on when the completion is, so, yeah.
Prior to December 31st, 2025.
Yeah, if everything works, but I don't know if that's possible.
We'll make,
That's the hope.
Fingers crossed.
we'll make it work, right, Mayor?
You second that? You second?
Yes, I do.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, all right. 24-133, amend Stars and Benefits Code, add Law Department intern. Mr. Huber.
This is a request after some discussion with mainly Matt Lanier about adding an intern in our office. When I was in law school, in my second year, I was asked to go down to Canton and serve as a prosecuting attorney with the lead prosecutor down there at the time. His name was Bob Horowitz. And he taught me how to try criminal cases. And then I stayed with it. And when I got out of law school, he hired me as a prosecuting attorney full-time, and then I went with him as one of the lead counsel in the felony prosecutor office for a number of years. And so Matt also has had similar experience. Having an intern in the office allows us to mentor law students who come to us. We've got a young woman right now who's in our office and is very, very good. We don't really have a position to be able to do this, and I get quite a few requests because I graduated from Akron, but I also have ties down at Ohio State. So I get requests from Ohio State, Case, and Akron for people who are interested in the city of Medina and learning how to work as a lawyer in the criminal division, and also look at some of what I do on the civil side. So we thought it would be well worth trying to create a position attached to this request as a job description. I think we can fund it. If we can't fund it, I'm sure you'll tell me we can't. But
I think you have carry forward funds that cover $12,000,
I thought so, so I wanted to thank Laureen for helping create the job description. I wanted to bring this request so we could start the program and hopefully benefit from it.
And how many weeks is the program again? Did you say? 10 to 12 weeks long in the summer?
Correct?
That sounds good. Yeah, he has carry forward, I believe, if I remember correctly. We could double check, but I think he has carry forward to cover the 12,500.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and finally, 24-134, amend salaries and benefits code, step authorization adjustments from the law department.
This request comes about as a result of Bob Campbell leaving our office as a prosecuting attorney. He has been hired as a magistrate working with Judge Werner. And this leaves a big hole in our operation. Right now, I have Megan working part-time, and Matt and I are covering everything else. So we're stretched. The court sets 1,500 cases a year for trial. So now we got 3 people handling these cases. We've got 52 weeks in a year. We're just up to our eyes in volume. In response to what's happened, Megan Philbin, who is one of the assistant prosecutors part-time, asked me if she could work full-time, and then that way she could cover the gap that's occurred with Bob not being there. She's a younger attorney, but she is an excellent trial lawyer and works really well in our office. So I looked at the pay, and I've got a full-time position, but I think it was at $86,000 or something like that. And that figure was set the way it was because that was the salary that Charlene Z was earning here at the city back when she worked here, but she had been working 12 to 14 years before she got to $86,000. It didn't make any sense to start Megan at that, so I told her I would request $70,000 something as a starting salary, and she has accepted that, conditioned upon this being okay with the council. In addition to that, I looked around at some of the other counties for job positions. Matt Lanier is probably my right-hand person, and he would like a raise, so I am including in this request a raise for Matt. I'm not sure when council goes on break, but I'd like to get this done as soon as possible if the council thinks it's okay, because we're kind of dying on the vine with the volume we're dealing right now. And I'd like to get Megan hired as fast as I can to start covering this. Right now, she comes in for 2.5 days. The rest of the time, it's Matt and I. And that's essentially it.
I think the one thing we talked about at Board of Control is once all these changes occur, I think the assistant prosecutor part-time that Megan was in, that would be removed, because then you'd still have 2 part-time prosecutors, of which it's vacant with Mr. Campbell, and you're the only one, so you still have room to hire another part-timer.
So that's correct. I can remove that at this time. Might need to reconsider that. I'm probably good for another 1.5, 2 years of work here, at which point the office is going to need to replace me as a trial lawyer, and I'm not sure how that's going to work, but
I think I'm really nervous about in the next few years as lawyers because of AI, but that's just me.
well,
Because things are going to change.
right.
They've been talking about it a lot at the bar associations, for sure, but, so yeah, I think that makes sense. So the part-time, assistant part-timer at the 101 pay grade will be removed, and all the other stuff will be changed, and I get what you're understanding about the emergency clause, and I don't have any issues. Anybody have any issues with that? Nope, okay.
I'll make a motion including the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
And that included all the changes, Kathy, in removing the 1 assistant prosecutor part-time. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else that needs to come before finance? Anybody have anything? All right, the meeting's adjourned.